At 2:47 in the morning, my phone rang. I knew before I picked it up someone was dying. What I didn't expect was who they wanted me to save. My father, the same man who emptied my college fund and gave it to someone else because he thought I wasn't worth it. Now he needed my kidney. I'm a nephrologist. I save kidneys for a living, but this time I had a choice. And it wasn't him I chose to save. It was 2:47 a.m. when my phone rang. That specific kind of hour when phones only ring for two reasons: emergencies or death. I was in the call room on the third floor of Massachusetts General, halfway through reviewing a dialysis chart for a patient in her 60s. The room smelled like old coffee and antiseptic. The hospital never really sleeps, neither do nephrologists. Unknown number, I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. Natalie? My mother's voice, cracked, unfamiliar, dusted with a kind of desperation I hadn't heard in over a decade. Your father, he's at St. Joseph's. Kidney failure, end stage. They said we need you. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't feel. No anger, no fear. Just that cold emptiness you learn to live with after years of pretending it doesn't matter. How long has he been in failure? I asked. 6 months? Maybe more? He didn't want to worry you. Didn't want to worry me. The same man who drained my entire $82,000 college fund, money my grandmother saved for me since I was born, and gave it to Troy, my cousin, because, as they said, he has more potential. Troy was going to be an architect. I was just a girl who wanted to be a teacher. I'm not a teacher, I had told her back then, choking on my own worthlessness. I want to be a doctor. But that didn't matter, not to them. That call, this call, it all felt like a rerun. Same players, same script, different stakes. I took a breath and responded with the same clinical tone I used to deliver bad news to patients. Send me the medical records. I'll review the case. I hung up before she could answer, before she could cry. Before I remembered what it felt like to sit in my college advisor's office at 19, holding letters from top schools I'd never afford, because my future had been handed to someone else. I stared at the phone screen for a while after. My hands were still steady. That surprised me. I should have felt something, rage, grief, maybe vindication, but all I felt was numb. Because this wasn't news. This was just the echo of a choice they made 10 years ago. Back then, they looked at me, a straight-A student, a hospital volunteer, a girl who dreamed of med school since she was 12, and decided I wasn't worth it. Now they wanted me to come back. Not as a daughter, but as a donor. I turned back to my notes, flipping to a fresh page. I would look at the labs, I would examine the file. But they needed to understand something very clearly. Tomorrow, I wasn't showing up as the girl they dismissed. I was showing up as Dr. Natalie Harper, and I don't give second chances just because we share DNA. The file landed in my inbox at 5:11 a.m. I didn't rush to open it. I sat with my coffee, watching steam rise in the flickering fluorescent light of the residence lounge. The same room I used to crash in during intern year, curled up on stiff couches after 30-hour shifts. The same space where I'd learned to detach, to treat pain clinically, to view suffering as numbers on a chart. This was no different, except it was. I opened the file. I already knew what I'd find. Robert Harper, male, 61, history of poorly managed hypertension and type 2 diabetes. Labs confirmed it, stage 5 chronic kidney disease, GFR at 10%, creatinine 6.1, urine output minimal. He was running out of time. Without a transplant, he had maybe 5 months, 6 if dialysis kept up. But with his comorbidities, more like 4. I stared at his name on the screen, Robert Harper, and felt nothing. This was a man who once looked me in the eyes and said, "Natalie, sometimes life isn't fair. You're strong. You'll find another way." Right after he told me my college fund had been reallocated like I was a spreadsheet, he gave my shot, my future, to Troy, a cousin with a silver tongue and average grades but the right kind of ambition. Because architecture sounded more prestigious than teaching, and certainly more than a girl wanting to be a doctor. Except I didn't reroute, I rebuilt. State school, 3 part-time jobs, community college credits, transferring, reapplying. There were nights I slept in my car outside the hospital so I could make it to early volunteer shifts. There were mornings I skipped breakfast just to afford MCAT prep books. Every inch of my white coat was sewn with sacrifice. Every letter after my name, MD, came with a price tag I paid in full. And now? Now I was the only biological match left standing. I didn't need my mother's next call to confirm it, but it came anyway. 7:18 a.m. She didn't say hello. The doctor said family is the best chance. Your brother can't. His diabetes rules him out. Then the pause. But you want me to get tested? I said, cutting through her hesitation like a scalpel. Yes, you're our only hope. Funny choice of words. because 10 years ago, when I begged them not to drain my future away, they told me Troy was their hope. How's he doing? I asked, the bitterness unfiltered now. Still designing skyscrapers? She hesitated. He's between things. Between things. Translation unemployed again. How long? That's not important right now. 5 years? 6? I leaned back in the chair, letting silence do the heavy lifting. I wasn't surprised, not anymore. This wasn't about hope. This was about convenience. I was convenient now, qualified, capable. A walking solution to a problem they created when they discarded the daughter who didn't fit their idea of success. We made a mistake, my mother said. No, I corrected, voice low, steady, sharp. You made a choice. And now, I would too. The automatic doors hissed open as I stepped into St. Joseph's Medical Center, a place that once felt sacred to me. I used to volunteer here, mopping floors, handing out blankets, watching real doctors with awe from behind the curtain. Back when I still believed medicine could fix everything, including families. Back when I still believed mine could be one. The front desk nurse glanced up, noting my ID badge. Dr. Natalie Harper, Nephrology, Massachusetts General. Funny how titles look heavier printed in ink. I used to dream of someone, anyone, in my family showing up to see those letters after my name, but no one ever came. I found his room easily, room 417. The smell hit me first, dialysis, antiseptic, metal. Then the beep of machines, low and rhythmic, almost like a countdown. There he was. Robert Harper, my father, or at least the man who used to be. He looked smaller somehow, shriveled under the weight of disease and time, skin grayish, eyes dull, tubes in both arms. Beside him sat my mother, gripping his hand like it was the only thing tethering him to this world. She looked up first, her lips parted like she wanted to say something, maybe thank you, maybe sorry. I didn't wait. I walked in, pulled up the chart on my tablet, and stood at the foot of the bed. Am I supposed to call you Dad? I asked quietly. He flinched. Whether from guilt or weakness, I didn't care. You came, he rasped. I met his eyes that once scanned over me at Christmas dinners like I wasn't even part of the furniture. I'm here, I said, as your consulting nephrologist. Silence, thick, suffocating. My mother reached out toward me. Natalie, your GFR is at 10%, creatinine at 6.1. Your kidneys are barely functioning. You're not urinating enough to sustain filtration, I said, my voice cold but steady. Dialysis is keeping you alive, but not for long. He nodded. They said a transplant is my best option. It's your only option, I corrected. More silence. They were waiting for me to break, to fold, to become the obedient daughter again, grateful for scraps of attention. Instead, I asked, so, tell me about Troy. How's the great architect? They exchanged glances. I almost laughed. He dropped out, my father said, barely audible, second year. And the 82,000? No one answered. I kept going. Was it the tuition or the car you bought him? I remember. It was red, leather seats. He didn't like public transportation, right? My mother whispered, it's all gone. I sat down for the first time, folding my hands over my tablet. I used to take 3 buses to get to my work-study job, 4 hours round trip. Sometimes I slept at the library, but sure, Troy needed a car. She started to cry. It used to move me. It used to crack my resolve. Not anymore. You looked at me, I said, and decided I wasn't worth the investment. You watched your daughter hold a 4.0 GPA, volunteer at hospitals, shadow doctors every summer, and you bet on someone else. My father tried to speak, but I raised a hand. You don't get to speak yet, not until I'm done. I pulled out my phone. This is me at my community college graduation, summa cum laude, paid for with 3 jobs. Swipe. This is me at med school. Not my first choice. I couldn't afford the application fees. Swipe. My residency match at Cleveland Clinic. Swipe. Fellowship offer at Mass General. Swipe. And this is the research I published on kidney disease in underserved communities. The kind of people who didn't have parents paying their way. The kind of people like me. Tears streamed down my mother's face. My father looked like he was seeing me for the first time. But I wasn't finished. This is what you missed, I said. This is what you called less potential. The room was quiet, too quiet for all the noise in my head. They stared at the phone in my hand, at the trail of pictures they'd never seen. Pictures that marked the milestones of a life they'd opted out of. Not because they didn't have the time, but because they didn't think I was worth showing up for. My mother wiped her face with the corner of her sleeve. My father's eyes were glassy, though I couldn't tell if it was guilt, pain, or just exhaustion from a failing body that could no longer hold all the weight of regret. I took a deep breath, holding back everything I wanted to scream. You missed every single one of these, I said quietly. This is me getting into med school. I sent you the acceptance letter. You never responded. Swipe. This is me working night shifts as a phlebotomist just to afford tuition. That's me at 5 a.m., covered in blood samples and coffee stains. Swipe. This is the residency dinner where I was named top intern. I had to ask a nurse to take the photo because I didn't have anyone there with me. Swipe. This one's my first journal publication. They sent me a plaque. I left it in the box. What's the point of celebrating when no one's watching? They said nothing, just sat there, watching a slideshow of someone they used to know, or thought they did. I worked, I said. Every damn day. I didn't get a car. I didn't get a head start. I didn't even get encouragement. All I had was grit, and I turned it into something real. My father finally spoke. His voice was cracked, weak, the shell of a man who once boomed with certainty and authority. We were wrong. You were deliberate, I replied, tone flat. Let's not confuse the two. He looked at the floor. My mother tried to reach across the bed toward me again, but I took a step back. Do you know what it's like? I asked. To walk across a graduation stage and scan the crowd, hoping, just hoping, someone you love might be there? They stayed quiet. It's not just that you didn't come, I added. It's that you never even asked when it was. Another breath, this one steadier. You decided who I was going to be long before I had the chance to show you. You saw a girl with dreams and called it a hobby. You saw Troy with plans and called it a future. You took my one shot and handed it over because he fit some mold you thought success was supposed to look like. I could feel the lump rising in my throat, but I didn't let it win. Not here, not now. I never needed your money. I never needed your praise. But God, I wanted your belief, just once. My mother whispered, "We're proud of you." I let the words hang there, suspended like smoke in the air. No, I said finally. You're proud of what I became in spite of you, not because of you. My father blinked slowly, looking at me like he was trying to remember who I used to be. Maybe he was starting to realize that I wasn't her anymore, that the version of me who once begged them to see her was gone. And in her place stood Dr. Natalie Harper, someone they didn't recognize, someone they didn't help build. You want to know if I'll save him, I said, folding my arms. If I'll give him a second chance. They didn't speak, but I saw the hope in their eyes. I'll give someone a second chance, I said, but maybe not the person you expect. The hallway outside the hospital room was silent, just the hum of the ventilation system and the distant squeak of a nurse's shoes echoing against tile. I needed air. I stepped outside into the gray Boston morning. The sky hadn't decided if it wanted to rain or snow. I took a sip of the now cold coffee I left in my car hours earlier, stale, bitter, like everything about that visit. They wanted me to save him. They thought I'd just fold, like the version of me they remembered, eager, grateful, desperate for approval. But that girl was gone. Back in my apartment that night, I pulled up a different file, one I had flagged weeks ago. Lucia Morales, 11 years old, stage 5 renal failure, on dialysis since she was 9. A bright kid with a lopsided smile and an obsession with space. She wanted to be an astronaut, drew rockets in her notebook during clinic check-ins. Single mom, 2 jobs, 3 kids, no car, missed half her appointments because she couldn't get off work. But she never stopped trying, never stopped showing up. Lucia reminded me of someone, me. I had watched her mother sit by her hospital bed every week, eyes sunken from exhaustion but still smiling when Lucia looked up. She held her hand like it was the most valuable thing in the world. There was never a question of whether she'd show up, only how she'd make it work. The next morning I made the call. I want to be tested for compatibility, I told the coordinator, for Lucia Morales. The voice on the other end hesitated. You're sure? Not the other patient on your consult list? I'm sure, I said. And I was. Later that week, the results came back. Perfect match. Of course it was. The universe had a cruel sense of irony, but sometimes it offered a way to rewrite the story. I went back to St. Joseph's one last time. They were waiting. This time, they looked hopeful, almost relieved. Like the hard part was over. Like I would just nod and agree to save the man who had once stolen everything from me. I sat down calm, collected. I got tested, I said. My mother gasped. My father's eyes lit up. And I'm a perfect match. Oh, thank God, she started, but I raised my hand. I'm not donating to him. Silence. Complete staggering. What do you mean? My father whispered. I mean, I said, steady and measured. My kidney is going to a girl who still has a future. A girl whose mother never once left her side. A girl who doesn't have the luxury of second chances. You're going to let me die? He choked out. I shook my head. No, I'm choosing to save someone else. My mother reached out. But he's your father. I looked at her, really looked at her. And Lucia is someone's daughter, someone who never told her she was less, someone who never gambled away her dreams. Their faces collapsed under the weight of realization. You taught me a lot, I said quietly. You taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. You taught me that potential isn't measured by gender or title or who sounds more impressive at dinner parties. It's measured by resilience. I stood up. And you taught me that when people show you who they are, you believe them. My father's voice cracked one more time. So this is it? You're done with us? I hesitated at the door. No, you were done with me a long time ago. I just finally caught up. The OR was cold, the kind of cold that bites even through scrubs. I sat on the edge of the gurney, IV already in my arm, heart rate steady. Monitors beeped softly in the background. This wasn't fear. It was clarity. Across the room, through the small glass window, I could see Lucia, all 90 pounds of her, hugging a teddy bear nearly half her size. Her gap-toothed smile lit up when a therapy dog came by, her laugh echoing faintly through the corridor. She had no idea what today meant, not really. But I did. Today meant a shot, a restart, a life without dialysis, a chance to chase rockets instead of appointment slips. The anesthesiologist leaned in. We'll begin the countdown shortly, Dr. Harper. You ready? I nodded, born ready. As the medication began to hum through my veins, I thought about my mother's last call the day before. I almost didn't pick up. But something, maybe the same small voice that once begged for her approval, made me answer. Your cousin got tested, she'd said. He's not a match. You were our only hope. No, I told her, calm and sure. I was your only biological hope. But there are donor lists, registries, systems for families who don't have daughters to guilt into compliance. She cried. I listened. You know he could die waiting, she whispered. I know, I replied. And he could also live long enough to finally understand what it feels like to need someone he discarded. There was nothing left to say. I ended the call. I didn't call back. Because I wasn't doing this to prove a point. I was doing it to close the loop. Lucia's mother had hugged me the day I told her, held my hands and wept in Spanish, fast, grateful, sacred. She promised to pay me back somehow, someday. I shook my head. Just tell her, I said, that someone believed in her, that she mattered enough to be chosen. That's what I never got. I was never chosen, not for a school recital, not for a graduation photo, not for a future my family deemed worthy. But I could be the person who chose, who broke the cycle, who made sure someone else didn't grow up believing she had to earn love by overachieving. I felt the anesthesia begin to pull at my thoughts. The last thing I remember was a ceiling light fading to white, and Lucia's laugh still ringing in the hallway. I woke up sore, groggy, but intact, one kidney lighter, one future brighter. The nurses said she was doing well. Her body was accepting the transplant. Her mom couldn't stop crying. Neither could I. But this time it wasn't grief, it wasn't bitterness, it was release. Because the family that raised me tried to measure my worth by what I wasn't. And I finally found a way to measure it by what I chose to give. Not to them. To someone who still believed in possibility.